Who is Tom Bilyeu?
Quest Nutrition co-founder and president.
He's part of the team that took an idea from the back of a napkin and transformed it into the second fastest growing private company in America. And now Tom's going one-on-one with other trailblazers in the field to uncover their secrets to success.
I can tell you right now what principle number one is: follow your passion.
On today's episode, legendary director Jim Abrams.
Airplane, Top Secret, Ruthless People, Hot Shots.
How he conquered Hollywood and why he left it all behind for his son.
Our third kid started to have seizures.
The drastic action he took, even when doctors said his child was out of options.
Never assume you can't do someone else's job better than they can.
Unlocking the principles you need to face any challenge.
In 2 days, the seizures stopped.
Whoa.
Inside Quest starts right now.
All right, everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Inside Quest. We have a guest with us today that I think is going to blow your minds in terms of what he's been able to accomplish in his life. As you know, the goal of our show is to bring on amazing people and get from them those universal principles of success that hopefully you can apply to your own life. I know that I'll be trying to apply them to mine. Our guest today is none other than Jim Abrams. He's absolute royalty in the comedy game. If you look up top 100 comedies of all time, you're going to see multiple of his movies on there. You've got Airplane, Top Secret, Ruthless People, Hot Shots Part 2, just to name a few. And I'm sure what you guys are thinking is, surely you can't be serious that you got Jim Abrams to be on Inside Quest. But I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. But the thing that we're really going to talk about today, the thing that I think is most interesting, Jim, about you, is how you responded to tragedy. But before we get to that, if you don't mind, give us just a quick thumbnail sketch of how you go from self-deprecating kid in Wisconsin to running the show in Hollywood.
Briefly, I just ran into a couple of buddies in Milwaukee, David and Jerry Zucker, and this is in the late 60s. We decided, let's open a little theater in the back of a bookstore. We called it Kentucky Fried Theater. So we packed up after a couple of years of doing our show and moved out to LA and opened Kentucky Fried Theater.
Now, when people have asked you in the past about that, you've said, well, I didn't have much to lose, so why not do it? But were people telling you that you were crazy?
Well, maybe behind our backs, that's what they were saying.
Sure.
Nobody was expecting it to really work out.
Sure.
I think the odds were it would be like a 3 or 6 month adventure for these boys.
So you come to Hollywood, John Landis, if I'm not mistaken, comes and sees you guys doing Kentucky Fried Theater.
Correct.
And says the famous words, you should turn this into a movie.
We said, how do you do that? And he said, well, you need to write a script. And he said, well, how do you write a script? So he gave us
From humble beginnings.
Tell me. So he gave us a script, and actually the script was American Werewolf in London, which he hadn't made yet.
Wow.
But this is the format that you follow in order to write a script. So we took our theatrical show and put it into that script. We got financing for Kentucky Fried Movie and started to give us a little credibility in the movie business.
You know, when you think about, name some of the hardest things that a human being would have to do in life, breaking into Hollywood has got to be one of those. When you didn't even know how to write a script or what it meant to direct a movie or write a movie for that matter, how'd you guys keep going?
This is a little side anecdote. When we first got together, the Zuckers have lived in Milwaukee, and their next door neighbor was a woman named Mrs. Zabotsky. And Mrs. Zabotsky one day walked out on her second floor porch, and she noticed the Zuckers' house was on fire. So she called the fire department, and they came. And they hooked up their hoses and ladders and stuff, and they started squirting water on the house. But they couldn't get the water to where the flames were. So Mrs. Zabotsky, the next door neighbor who had called it in, said, why don't you come up here and stand on my porch, and then you can squirt water on the flames. And they did, and the fire went out, which led to our governing rule: never assume you can't do someone else's job better than they can.
When I think about the organizing principles of success, that's one of them. The power of being naive enough to think, you know, hey, I can do this better, or more aptly, the willingness to say I can learn it. For a long time, I built my self-esteem around being right, which a lot of people do, and I think that's incredibly dangerous, boys and girls. Because when you build your self-esteem around being right and you're around people that are smarter than you, as I routinely am with the group of guys that I've surrounded myself with, you find yourself wrong all the time. So you start arguing for really stupid ideas, and it's not serving anyone. The cool thing about the house being on fire is there's a very clear objective, and we are either moving towards that objective or away from that objective.
We learned a humbling corollary, I might add, which is don't assume someone else can't do your job better than you.
Yeah, there's a sad flip side to that coin.
One thing that I learned through my partnership with David and Jerry is that at the end of the day, I don't care if I'm right. What I care about is that right wins out.
Understanding sort of how your mind works, understanding the never assume that you can't do somebody's job better, but also the flip side of that. I want to talk about Charlie, which is the thing that takes you from being sort of a childhood hero of mine, somebody that achieved something in Hollywood, to really impacting the way that I view the world. And when I heard this story and your response, it really rocked me, and it really made me rethink things. If you can, just tell us that story.
Our third kid was born in 1992. In his first year, he started to have epilepsy. The definition of epilepsy is having more than one seizure. At first, they were kind of subtle, but then they got bigger and longer and stronger and yuckier.
How many seizures was he having a day?
He was having anywhere from like a dozen to 100 seizures a day. I mean, he was a really sick baby. The best of the pediatric neurology world said, okay, you have two options. There are drugs and there are brain surgery. So we ran through all these drugs, and then they did try a brain surgery, and it was hideous, and it was a nightmare. And it didn't work. You can hear me go there. All right, so during one visit, after nothing had worked, I just went into the medical library at UCLA and I started to read about the ketogenic diet.
Talking to the doctors, they obviously must have told you about the ketogenic diet.
They didn't.
This is a powerful reminder of, I think, how to act in a crisis. So you're talking to the people that should know, they don't. Mrs. Zabotsky's law says that you should be able to figure this out and you're not going to be paralyzed and act like you can't do something.
When I read the paper, I called the folks at Johns Hopkins. He said, bring Charlie, we'll try the diet. And in 2 days, the seizures stopped.
Whoa.
And in another month, he was off all the drugs.
Wow, I didn't realize it happened that fast.
Yeah, it happened that quickly.
Most people that you turn, I have chills, like even my head is tingling. This was the story that shook me. When I heard that, okay, here's a guy that is faced with this thing that has completely shut his family down. His son is having 100 seizures a day. He's tried medication, he's had brain surgery. As overwhelming as that would be, I think, for people, your response was to go to the library. That's such an incredible choice. What was driving you?
Some of it had to do with Mrs. Zabotsky's law, and we'd seen that vindicated over the years. I mean, in fact, if that was a driving principle when we were in the movie business, that was right. By that stage of my life, that was ingrained in me. You know, maybe I can do that better than you guys can.
To explain to people why this hit me so much and why this is something that I talk about, my wife and I talk about, and has sort of become lore here in Quest, is this mindset. I tell this story. My wife is British, this is true. Let's say that she were in London visiting her family and she was in her bedroom. Right at that moment, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, crashes into her bedroom and kills her. Whose fault is that? Now, everybody, without exception, their answer is force majeure, it's fate. In no uncertain terms, it is my fault that my wife was killed by a meteorite. Now, why do I say that? The word fault is completely charged, and I get it, and I'm losing you guys on that one word alone. But all I'm trying to do is remind people that you're in control. But let's get specific about the meteorite. How do I know that it's my fault? Because I could have controlled something. There's an organization right now that tracks what are called near-Earth objects. They're trying to find ways to deflect that. Now, I've never once called them to wish them good luck. I've never sent them a dime of money. I've never even sent an email with an encouraging idea. I think that the likelihood of my wife being killed by a meteorite are very, very small. So I'm not going to spend my time focused there. I'm going to spend my time on other things. But if it were to happen, I would not waste time saying that there was nothing that I could have done, because I could have done something. I'm just trying to remind myself that in moments like this, There's always something that somebody can do.
Absolutely. It's about the fact that we are all in control, largely in control of our own medical destinies. You know, there's a world epilepsy population of 60 million people. Most of those people, and most of those people start having seizures as children. And much less than 1% ever hear they can change what they eat and get better.
So you going to the library, you skimming through, and K happens to come before L, which was the thing you were researching. And so you stumble upon ketogenics, but you then chase that and you figure it out and you're like, whoa, 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 if this is really true and it has this kind of impact, then I need to know more about this. And you learn about it and you find the guy, write to the doctor, you get him to see Charlie, and it works. And now you're like, okay, I'm not gonna turn inward, I'm not going back to the movies. This now has lit me on fire. And now I have a passion.
Passion is, I believe, is everything. Once Charlie got sick and better, and I started to get involved in the world of epilepsy and diet therapy for epilepsy, I sort of kind of lost it for the movie business. Basically what happened is we made a movie in 1997 called First Do No Harm with Meryl Streep, which was about the ketogenic diet. And I went to the set every day making that movie, and I cried. And then I directed one movie after that, and I tried my best, but I wasn't into it anymore. I was sort of painting by numbers, and I wasn't very good, and the movie wasn't very good. And I understood, you know, that I'm not a bright enough guy that I can pull stuff off unless I really care, unless I'm really passionate about it. And I found a new passion in promoting diet therapy. Every once in a while the phone rings and somebody will say, you know, my kid got better and you had something to do with that, and that makes me feel really good. I know what those people have been through. I know how they felt holding their kid while he was having seizures, and I know what it's like to have the seizures go away.
Thank you for sharing all of that, by the way. I know it's intensely personal stuff, and you've really turned some of your own difficulties into beauty in other people's lives. When you think about having a grand goal, that's pretty grand and pretty amazing, and I have to imagine pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it certainly is, but I kind of look at it like there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
And so we'll keep doing that.
As the greats always do. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This is a really big deal for me. I'm really excited to have you on. I think the way that you view the world and what you've gone through shows that the way that an entrepreneur thinks can cross so many different aspects of life, from having a massively successful career in Hollywood all the way through what you've done with the Charlie Foundation and really touching and changing people's lives. Absolutely incredible. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to subscribe. We do this every week. So until then, we'll see you next time.